Hi everybody, here is the video about Act 1, Scenes 4 and 5. I am going to go pretty quick through Scene 4, and then spend more time on Scene 5. Scene 3, if you recall, ended with the nurse encouraging Juliet to go have fun at the party, which is starting in Capulet's mansion. And remember that when that servant was inviting people, he accidentally told Romeo about it, right? And Benvolio. So Romeo apparently told all his Montague friends to come to this party. And so we've got Romeo. This character we haven't met yet. We're meeting for the first time. His name is Mercutio. He's a very, 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 very important character. And he's actually not in the Montague or Capulet family. He's actually related to the Prince, which is that third kind of separate family called the Aeschylus family. Benvolio, who is another Montague, and 5 or 6 in here calls them other maskers, because it's a masquerade party, it's a costume party, and people carrying torches, a guy with a drum. Like, it's just guys out kind of pre-partying, getting ready to go to this big Capulet party, and they're going in masks, so that's how they're going to try to sneak in somehow and not be recognized as Montagues who would not be welcomed at the party. Then the thing about Mercutio, and part of what makes him so interesting, is he's actually is friends with both Capulets and Montagues. And we'll talk more about him later, but you can tell by that fact I just told you that he's truly an important character. So Romeo starts off talking about like what are we gonna just about kind of what their excuse is going to be for why they're late, and Benvolio says don't worry about that. Here's the key part where things start getting kind of interesting. Here's more, I mean, I guess it might not be that interesting, more of Romeo being kind of a sad, mopey guy. He's saying, give me that torch, I'm not for this ambling, there's your vocab word. And here's another pun, being but heavy, I will bear the light. So again, he's playing with what light means, whether it's the opposite of heavy, or whether it's the thing that the torch is giving him. So we've got more light and heavy, light and dark, more of those dichotomies that we keep talking about. First words we hear from Mercutio is, nay, gentle Romeo, we must have you dance. All right, so Mercutio is his best friend. He's another, just like Benvolio, but Mercutio has a very different attitude in terms of how he tries to cheer Romeo up and get him to kind of snap out of his depression. All right, we've got more puns. He says, I can't, you have dancing shoes. With nimble soles, I have a soul of lead. There's that obvious pun on soul there. And it so stakes me to the ground I cannot move. So that's how Romeo is feeling. Mercutio argues with him, right? You are a lover. Borrow Cupid's wings and soar with them above the common bound. Why should you be so heavy? You're a lover. Just fly like with Cupid's wings, right? And Romeo says he's got that arrow in him. He can't fly. He's wounded. I am too sore and pierced with his shaft, with his arrow, to soar with light feathers. Under love's heavy burden do I sink. And Mercutio starts to argue with him about that. To sink in it, should you burden love, too great oppression for a tender thing. He's like, you're ruining love. Love is tender. You know, you're kind of weighing it down. And Romeo argues with him about that. This is very interesting. Is love a tender thing? It is too rough. It is too rude, too boisterous, and it pricks like a thorn. Then here's Mercutio's great advice, which has some double meanings to it. You can try to read into what Mercutio says right there in blue to see, you know, what he really means by that, but that's his advice right there. So I'll leave that as it is. Anyway, then Mercutio starts kind of talking about wanting a mask. I'm going to scroll down a little bit and skip ahead as they they have this back and forth. Romeo and Mercutio in here, and you'll see it well in the film, they have this back and forth where they're kind of sparring with each other, verbal sparring, a lot of wordplay, and I'm not going to go through it all here. Romeo then talks about, you know, I don't feel like going. You know, he's that guy who just is being dragged to a party. I don't know if this has ever been you, where you've seen someone like this who's being dragged to a party and really does not want to go. And his reason is about a dream he had. And then Mercutio starts talking about he says, oh, so I see Queen Mab has been with you. Now, he gives this really long speech, Mercutio. It's famous. It's called the Queen Mab speech because look at it. Whoa, it's kind of crazy long. And it's really weird. I'm not going to spend much time on it here. Obviously, feel free to read through it. But he's talking about Queen Mab, who he calls the fairy's midwife. Like she's this fairy person, and she visits you in your dreams and makes all this weird kind of hallucinatory stuff happen. So there's a weird imagery, lots of craziness in this speech about what she does to your dreams and what she does while you're sleeping. Lots of great imagery. Some people think Shakespeare didn't even really write this part of this speech, that because it's kind of different than the rest of it. Um, so anyway, just in the interest of time here, I'm going to kind of skip forward. But the point here is that, and you'll see it in most movie versions, Mercutio becomes a little bit unhinged by the end. He's like kind of freaking out, and it gets kind of scary. And by the end, he's saying, "This is the hag when maids lie on their backs that presses them and learns them first to bear, making them the women of good carriage. This is she." And the fact that Romeo cuts him off and says, "Peace, peace, Mercutio, peace." It's like, chill out. Something is wrong with you. Again, Mercutio, a very interesting character. We'll get to know him a lot as the play goes on. And he's saying, "You're talking about nothing. No talks of nothing." And he says, "True, I talk of dreams, which are the children of an idle brain, begot of nothing but vain fantasy, which is as thin of substance as the air and more inconstant than the wind." So there's all this stuff about, he's talking about dreams, he's talking about fantasy. There's another great dichotomy, obviously, here between fantasy and reality, between dreams and reality. Something that some of you might like thinking about. Anyway, then they go to the party, and then here we have an interesting moment where Benvolio says they're going to be late, and Romeo says, "I think we might be too early, because my mind misgives some consequence yet hanging in the stars shall bitterly begin his fearful date with this night's revels, and expire the term of a despised life closed in my breast by some vile forfeit of untimely death." So what's happening here in Romeo's lines, if you can read them again, is this is foreshadowing. He's getting a premonition. He's getting a bad feeling about something. And if you look at it, maybe you can figure out what he's getting a bad feeling of. That's the end of scene 4. Okay, scene 5 is the last scene of Act 1. It's very important. They're going to meet. So it starts with kind of hectic kind of servants kind of being funny, looking for stuff. And this is often cut out of movie versions, but it's an important thing that Shakespeare did, where he had the servant class kind of also be showing up, talking in prose, as you can see, not poetry. And anyway, just to show kind of the action of what would be happening there. Capulet is kind of greeting people into his party, and then here come Romeo and all his people, and he's just welcoming them all. I'm going to scroll down a little bit as he kind of talks to other people and welcomes more people. And let's get to the interesting stuff. It's down here. Romeo asks some random servant, "What lady is that which doth enrich the hand of yonder knight?" So there's a lady, she's Juliet, and I'm dancing with someone else. And here is the first time Romeo sees her. And he has this beautiful speech about seeing Juliet for the first time. And what we'll see in the film is, it's really important. We have to believe that he falls in love with her, real love, if you believe that they are really in love, in this moment in the play. And he says, "She doth teach the torches to burn bright." So again, we've got light. So she's so beautiful that she teaches torches how to burn bright. We'll look at the rest of this in class a little bit more closely, but I'd like you to look at it now once on your own, as he compares her to a jewel. She hangs upon the cheek of night. He's personifying all of night. We've got a lot of white and black imagery to show how she sparkles more brightly than anything else. She's a dove with crows, things like that. And then his plan is to touch her hand and bless his rude hand by touching hers. So he's kind of already calling her a saint, basically. And then look at this. "Did my heart love till now? Forswear its sight, for I ne'er saw true beauty till this night." Now that might strike you as kind of weird, because what has pretty much every single line of Romeo has been, up until this point in the play, about his love for someone else, Rosaline. Now he sees Juliet and he's like, "Oh my gosh, have I ever loved anyone before? I've never seen someone as beautiful before." So again, the romantics of you may want to see like this is the real thing now. The more cynical of you may see Romeo is just moving from one obsession to another obsession. I'm not going to tell you who's right, because, I don't know. Plenty of people have written plenty on both. But the point is, he sees Juliet and he immediately forgets about anybody else and actually says out loud, "Gee, have I ever loved before?" Which I guess is kind of funny. Now, Tybalt. Remember Tybalt? He's the one who showed up earlier and wanted to fight with Benvolio and all that. And now he recognizes Romeo's voice as he's, I guess, talking to himself, which we kind of accept as a kind of fiction of the stage world. But he hears him and recognizes that he's a Montague. And he gets his sword. And he thinks, he says, "What dares the slave come hither? Why does that slave," which is just an insult, "come here, covered with an antic face, covered with a mask, to fleer and scorn at our solemnity?" So why does he think? Why does Tybalt think that Romeo is at the Capulet party? To fleer and scorn at our solemnity. And he says, "Now by the stock and honor of my kin, to strike him dead, I hold it not a sin." He thinks now that he has the right to strike him dead because of the insult of Romeo's appearance at the Capulet party. Now Capulet, Lord Capulet, Juliet's dad, Tybalt's uncle, says, "Why are you freaking out? Wherefore storm you so?" Wherefore means why, by the way. Why are you like storming around? And Tybalt tells him, "This is a Montague, our foe. Come hither in spite to scorn our solemnity this night." And Capulet looks at him and says, "Oh, is that young Romeo? Yeah, it's he, that villain Romeo." Now look at Capulet's response. "Content thee," meaning be happy, gentle coz. "Let him alone, leave him alone. He bears him like a portly gentleman. And to say truth, Verona brags of him to be a virtuous and well-governed youth." So one reason that Capulet says he should calm down is, yeah, that everyone says he's a good kid, okay? "I would not for the wealth of all this town here in my house do him disparagement." There's another reason you can probably think of why Capulet doesn't want to insult Romeo or start some sort of fight in his house right now. Remember what happened earlier in the day. It was earlier that day. It was in the morning. Anyway, he says, "Be patient, take no note of him. It is my will, the which if thou respect, show a fair presence, and put off these frowns and ill-beseeming semblance for a feast." That's the other reason. This is a party. Please calm down. I don't want to fight at my party. And Tybalt says, "No, I'll not endure him." And then Capulet gets angry at him. "He shall be endured." I say, "He shall. Go to. Am I the master here or you?" Like, get in your place, You go to. You'll not endure him? Come on. "You'll make a mutiny among my guests? Are you kidding me? Get out of here." I don't really know what that means, but it's probably in your glossary. And Tybalt keeps fighting him. Tybalt has a lot of pride in like the honor of the Capulet family, and he really, again, obviously, he's into the rivalry and thinks that this is just an indefensible insult for Romeo, the son of Lord Montague, to sneak into this party. Capulet keeps yelling at him. All right, now Romeo and Juliet's first lines together. Ooh, man, it's so good. This is what's called a shared sonnet. It's a really famous piece of love poetry here, where they're kind of talking to each other. So I'll walk you through it here so that you kind of understand it. And again, we'll watch it in the film versions in class. Romeo takes her hand. He just grabs it. And he says, "If I profane with my unworthiest hand this holy shrine," the gentle sin is this. So he's saying, there's all this sacred and profane imagery. Sacred means holy, profane means the opposite of holy. And so he's saying, if I am being profane, like profanity, with this unworthy hand by touching this holy shrine, which is your hand, this is my sin. My lips are two blushing pilgrims, so he's personifying his lips there, and they stand ready to smooth that rough touch with a tender kiss. He's saying, I am ready to kiss your hand, basically, and to kind of smooth over that sin. Now look what Juliet does. Remember I told you she has really tricky poetry. She's very, very smart, and she, but she kind of plays this game with him. So he's pretending that he's a pilgrim, meaning like a religious traveler visiting a shrine, a holy city where a saint might be, or a statue of a saint or something, or a relic. And she says, "Good pilgrim," she's calling him a pilgrim, "you do wrong your hand too much. You're being too mean to your hand." Which mannerly devotion shows in this. You're doing the right thing. You're being devout. And Italy was a Catholic country, so this is all kind of Catholic imagery. You're doing the right thing. Saints have hands, which pilgrims' hands do touch, and palm to palm is holy Palmer's kiss. So she's talking about Palmer is all this is in your glossary too, but basically it's if you want to kiss the saint's hand, it's palm to palm. So you're allowed to touch my hand, she's saying, but it would be like this, okay? Now, so she's like, okay, you can touch my hand, but like this. So back off a little bit. And he says, wait, don't saints have lips? Have not saints lips? And holy Palmer's too. You get what that means? She says, I, Pilgrim, yes, Pilgrim. Lips that they must use in prayer. Okay, so she's like right there playing back with him, right? You know, as he's trying to argue, wait, we have lips. She says, yeah, they're for prayer. So Romeo doesn't give up, obviously. He says, okay then, dear saint, let lips do what hands do. They pray, grant thou, lest faith turn to despair. So this is getting a little pushier, right? He's like, okay, well then, if their hands are touching like lips, let's let our lips do what hands are doing. That lips pray, and he's telling you basically, I'm praying for this kiss. So please grant my prayer, otherwise my faith will turn to despair. And she's like, whoa, that's not how it works, man. You know, saints don't just do stuff and grant prayers, okay? They don't move, meaning you can't just make a saint move because you prayed for it. Romeo's a good line here. Okay, then move not, while my prayers effect I take. And then he kisses her. Oh, man, this is why people, when you call someone a Romeo, this is what it's about. It's this stuff. He says, okay, now thus from my lips by thine my sin is purged. So by kissing her, he's purged his sin. He's gotten rid of it. Now Juliet playing along too is like, oh no, have my lips now absorbed that sin? Do I have the sin? And he says, oh, sin from my lips? Give me my trespass sweetly urged, give me my sin again. He's like, oh, okay, then I'll just take it back. And he kisses her again. Incredible. This is a famous line. This is an expression that people say today, you kiss by the book. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but that's a thing. Anyway, that's it. This is the moment where it all happens. And both movie versions that I'll show you do this, I think, really, really well. And we'll take a look at it. Anyway, then Juliet gets calls away. Romeo says, you know, who is her mother? He doesn't know who she is. She's just a girl at a party, okay? And the nurse is like, Mary Bachelor, like, dude, don't you know? Her mother's the lady of the house. She's Lady Capulet, you know? And he's like, and she says, I tell you, he that can lay hold of her shall have the chinks. That means like a lot of money. Like she's loaded, and whoever gets her is lucky. Now Romeo aside, meaning he's saying it to the audience where no one else can hear him, is she a Capulet? And he realizes it there, and he realizes, oh my gosh, my life is my foe's dead. Like I'm dead basically, and my enemy owns me. Then everyone starts leaving the party, and after they leave, Juliet asks who Romeo was. And she's like, wait, that guy? No, that guy. No, not that guy. She finally asks around. The nurse finds out who he is. His name is Romeo and a Montague, the only son of your great enemy. Then we have this amazing little 4 lines here from Juliet. Really important, really great lines. My only love sprung from my only hate, too early seen unknown and known too late. Prodigious birth of love it is to me that I must love a loathed enemy. Obviously, I'm going to talk about dichotomies here. You can figure that out. And you know, Juliet feels like, you know, of course, this is the first person I'm going to love. It's going to be the only son of my great enemy. And this is interesting too. And the nurse is like, what'd you say? And she said, oh, it's just a rhyme I learned. Nothing. So she's not telling the nurse the truth about it, which is interesting too. And then everyone leaves. That's the end of Act 1. So there's some classic kind of Shakespearean tragedy stuff too, where in Act 1 we get the buildup of everything, and then it ends right at this is the beginning of the tragedy, right? Like this is this meeting of Romeo and Juliet, and them falling for each other so hard, and then finding out that that's the one person they really can never be with, that their families would never, 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 never in a million years accept. That's the person they fell in love with. It's a sad story. Okay. Thank you for watching. If you are leaving feedback on the videos, again, I really do read those, so I appreciate it. Okay. Thanks, everybody. See ya later. Bye.